Hi, I'm Jo Barclay-Logie and today's demo is all about bezeling. I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful Rivoli cocktail ring. Now there are a number of ways that you can bezel around a stone, and I guess the most traditional of those ways is by using peyote stitch. I've also done bezeling where I've started with right angle weave, but today to make this ring I'm going to show you how to bezel around the Rivoli using flat herringbone stitch. Let's have a look at the materials needed to complete the project. I've got two different sizes of Miyuki seed beads here. I've got size 11s in Duracoat galvanized pewter, and I've got size 15s, the smaller ones, in Duracoat galvanized champagne. I've got my 18mm Swarovski Rivoli here in black diamond. I'm using 6-pound fireline, and I have chosen to use the smoke this time because my beads are all quite dark, so there's less chance of my thread showing. I've got my thread zapper to cut my threads, and I'm going to use a size 12 beading needle this time, mainly because of the 15s. It means I can pass the needle through there a lot easier. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is to bead a strip of flat herringbone using the size 11 seed beads. So you need to cut yourself fingertip to fingertip, so stretch your arms out to your sides and go from your middle finger to your middle finger. We call that a wingspan of thread, and that should be enough to complete this project, and thread it onto your needle. Now I'm not going to start straight away with the flat herringbone. I'm going to cheat a little bit basically. I'm going to get 2 rows going at once instead of 1 row at a time. So to start off, I'm going to pick up 4 seed beads. We all know that when you start a project, it's really difficult because you've got so little to hold on to. So if I can find a way of doing 2 rows at once instead of 1, it gives me a little bit more to grip onto. Pick up your 4. Bring them down towards the end of your thread. You only need to leave a 5 to 10 centimeter tail that you'll tie off much later on in the project. And we're going to pass the needle back up through the first 2 seed beads. And when I pull my thread through, you'll see I've got 2 columns of 2 seed beads side by side, and my thread is exiting the bead on the left. I'm going to start doing flat herringbone now, and for me the whole sequence is easier if my thread is on the right, so I'm just flipping that over so that the thread is on the right. If you find it easier to do it the other way, then by all means keep your beadwork the way it was. So the thread is exiting from the bead on the right. I'm going to pick up 2 size 11s. I'm going to come down through 1 bead on the left, in the left hand column. I'm just popping my fingers there to hold things in place. I will move them out of the way in a sec. And we just need them to sit neatly on top. So you'll see there I've got 3 rows now of 2 seed beads that are side by side. So I'm now needing to bead back up to the top, and so that my thread is invisible and I don't see it, I'm going to bring it straight across this intersection here between the first and the second row. So I've only come down 1 bead, but I will be going up through 2. And when I pull my thread through, that thread across those 2 is sucked in between those 2 rows and you don't see it. So we're ready to do another row. We pick up 2 seed beads, we come down through 1, didn't mean to pull the tubes of seed beads into the shot there. And again, we need to go back up to the beginning. So you take your thread straight across that intersection and you will be coming up through 2 seed beads on this side, on the right hand side. So I've now got 4 rows. It's really neat, this stitch. It's a neat way of bezeling around either a cabochon or a Rivoli. So I'm picking up 2, come down 1, make sure that those 2 I've just added sit neatly on top of the previous 2. Take your thread straight across and bead up through 2 beads on the right. I'll do one more with you. I'm picking up 2. I'm going to pass down through 1 bead on the left, take my thread straight across and bead up through 2 beads on the right. And I'm going to continue doing exactly the same thing until I've got my strip of flat herringbone, and I'll come straight back to you. So I've beaded a few more rows, and I just wanted to come back to you and show you how easy this flat herringbone stitch is now that I've got a bit more to hold on to and I won't get my fingers in the way so much. So my thread is exiting from the bead on the right hand side. Pick up 2 of your size 11s, come down 1 bead on the left, pull your needle through, take your thread straight across and go up 2 beads on the right hand side. So this is going to become like a little mantra for you with your flat herringbone stitch. It's going to be a case of pick up 2, come down 1, take your thread across and up 2. So you're always picking up 2 beads at the same time. You're going to come down 1 bead and then pass the needle up through 2. I'm going to continue doing this until I count 40 rows of my herringbone stitch. I've now completed my column of flat herringbone stitch, and I have 40 rows counting from the tail, each row of beads to the end here. I would advise you to count them twice. I think I've counted mine 3 times just to make sure, because your eyes can do funny things when you see so many beads lined up so closely together. So I've got 40 rows of beads, and that is perfect to fit around my 18mm Rivoli. So if I just bring those together, you can see it's a really neat fit around the Rivoli. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to join the 2 ends together to form your little ring. So I'm just making sure that this piece doesn't twist as I take one end to meet the other. So keep it flat, bring one end up to the other, and I'm really just going to join the 2 together. I'm going to come down through 2 beads. My tail is there as well, so I just want to make sure that that stays out of the way. And I'm going to take the thread straight across, and I'm going to come up through those 2 and then down through 2 on the other end to really try and get those 2 edges connected. And when I pull my thread all the way through and pull things a bit tight, you'll see how they seamlessly come together there. And I'm just going to reinforce that by coming through the beads again. So we don't want this to be a weak point where the connection is made. So I'm coming down through all 4 beads, 2 from the one edge and 2 from the other. And straight across and up 4 or 5, it doesn't matter, just to reinforce that connection. And then we'll be ready to move on to the next section. Having stitched the 2 ends together, I've just popped the Rivoli in there so you can see what a neat fit it is. I won't be beading the next little stage with the Rivoli in place, because it's just too much to hold on to. But you can see here's my little tail, and this, when I get to the end, I can either stitch that into my beadwork or I can tie it off in a knot. But I'm not going to get rid of it just yet. So we're going to move on to the 15s now, and I'm going to hold my work so that I can see where my thread is exiting. And if I use my needle, it's coming out the base of this size 11 here where my needle is. Okay, so now I'm going to do an edge. The edging with the smaller bead is going to bring everything in a lot tighter together so that your Rivoli, there's no way it's going to fall out. So I'm going to do one at a time now. I'm picking up a 15. My thread is exiting that 11, so I'm going back through the same 11 but from the opposite direction, and I'm going to come down through one more, the one below it. So when I pull my thread through, you'll see how this little 15 now sits on the edge of that first 11. So pick up a 15, and I'm going to go back through the same 11 that my thread is exiting from. There you can see it exiting from the base, and I'm going in from the top through that 11 and through the 11 just below it, if it will play ball with me. Must be dinner time with that bell. That's me bashing the lights again. Pick up a 15 through the same 11 your thread's exiting from. There you can see I'm just coming through the one bead. Okay, I didn't manage to go through both. So through that 11, and I need to, before I pick up a bead, come through the 11 underneath the one I've just added a little edge to. Pick up a 15 and go through, back through the same 11 and the 11 that is sitting just below it. And you're going to do that the whole way around this circle. You're going to have this little edge of 15s all the way around till you get back to the beginning, and I'll come back to you then. I've just completed coming the whole way around, adding in my 15s to this side, and this is what your beadwork will now look like. And you're probably wondering to yourself, well, you said you're adding the 15s to bring everything in and make it tighter, to hold on to that Rivoli so it doesn't fall out, and at this stage that's not working. So it's at this next step that the magic really happens. So at the moment I have just added my last 15 and my thread is exiting the 11 I've come through. I'm going to step up through the very first 15 that I added. Now I need to pass my needle without picking up any beads through every 15 without missing any out. So if I pass it through these few here and pull my thread through, you might be able to see how when I pull, can you see how that pulls in tighter? Now don't be tempted to rush and pass your needle through as many as you can in one hit. If you can only go through a few at a time, do that, because it's really important to get your needle going through each of those 15s. If you miss any of them out, it's going to be very evident when you get to the end, and you won't get that nice, neat, tight closure. So just go through a few at a time, and you're going to do that the whole way round your circle until you get back to the beginning where you started to pull things in, and you're going to then go round all those 15s once more. So you're taking the needle through all the 15s without adding any beads twice around the whole circle, and I'll come back to you. So I finished passing the needle through all those 15s twice. I went round the first time and round the second time, and you can really see how that's pulled in now. So if I pop my Rivoli in there and I flip it over, you can see how that pulls in across the back, and there's no escape on that underneath side. But before we actually put the Rivoli in situ for real, we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. So you need to pass your needle through to this outer edge and you're going to add your 15s all the way around the outside edge. So my thread is coming out of a 15. I'm going to come back into an 11. Doesn't matter if you go through a couple. And now I'm going to take my thread straight across and come up through a couple of 11s on the outer edge where I don't have 15s yet. And just as I did on the other side, I'm going to start adding in the 15s. Pick up one at a time, go through the 11 that your thread's exiting from, but from the opposite end, and through the 11 just below it. And there is my first 15 on the other edge. So I want you to add your 15s the whole way around, and I'll come back to you when I get back to the beginning. I've added in my last 15 on this outer edge, and it's time for that magical step again where you're just going to pass the needle through all those 15s. But before you do that this time, you're going to pop your Rivoli in and you're going to hold it in place while you do that. So just before I do that, I need to step up through the first 15. So there my thread is coming out of that 11, and I'm going to come up through the very first 15. Okay. So now I'm going to pop my Rivoli in place and hold it as flat as you can in that setting. And remember, we're going to pass the needle through every single one of those 15s. Try not to skip any of them out. So if it's easier to just go through a few at a time, then do that, just a few at a time. And you can see already by pulling it in, you can see how it pulls on the side and pulls it to a really neat edge. So let's just move that tail out the way. Make sure you get through all the 15s. Some of them will be facing inwards, some of them will be facing outwards. Don't skip any of them out. So if you have to go one by one, you go one by one. If not, you can get your needle through a few at a time, all the while pulling your thread in, and as you pull in, you can see how that neat edge is formed around the outside. So I'm going to go all the way around those 15s once, and I'm going to come back to you and show you what it looks. I've come all the way through the 15s once, and you can already see that that Rivoli has been bezeled around and is trapped within the seed beads. I don't know what it is about the second passing through those 15s. It just seems to draw the beads in slightly tighter and give a neater finish. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to come all the way through those 15s once more until I'm back to the beginning, and then I can weave this thread away and end this thread off too, unless you want to add a little picot edge. So if we look at this one that I made earlier, you'll see the black beads were the herringbone, the gold on the inside are the little 15s, and then I've done a little edge around the 11s on the outside just to give it a bit more. So I'll come back when I've gone through all my 15s for a second time. I'm all the way back to the beginning, and you can see how beautifully bezeled that Rivoli is now to form the main part of the ring. And if I flip it over, you can see on the back side of that Rivoli as well. Before I end off my threads, I thought some of you might want to see how to do that little picot edge on the side. So at the moment my thread is exiting from a 15, and I'm going to just pass the needle through the 11 which is alongside it. Now things are getting a bit tight in the beads because we've passed the thread through multiple times, and that's why if you started using a size 10 beading needle you might have wanted to swap to a 12 by now. So I'm through the 11, and I'm going to use the little 15s to form a little picot edge. So I'm going to pick up 3 at a time. 1, 2, well, that's not a uniform one, 3. And I'm going to skip over one of the 11s and go through the very next one. And when I pull my needle through, you'll see how you get that little edge to the very neat herringbone finish. So again, if you wanted to do it, I'm going to pick up 3, skip over, your thread's coming out of 111, skip over the next one and pass your needle through the very next 11, just through one of them. Can you see how that edge is forming there? Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to end off my threads. I'm not going to do the edge the whole way around on this one. And then I'm going to show you how to make the ring shank. Now that the bezeling is complete, I'm just going to talk to you about how to complete the ring. So what I've done to make the ring shaft is I've beaded a strip of 2-drop even count peyote. Now, if you don't know how to do 2-drop even count peyote, I will pop a link in the comments to a very short mini tutorial that I've done on how to complete this stitch. You might want to use just ordinary flat even count peyote, but the 2-drop does bead up a lot quicker, so if you've spent a bit of time doing your bezeling, this is the quicker option. And you need the strip to be long enough to go around the finger that you're making the ring for, but remember you've got quite a wide stone on the top there. So if I bring the one that I finished into shot, now remember this is the one with the picot edge, so there you've got without the picot and with the little picot edge. And if I flip this over for you to see, you can see that I have joined one edge, this was just flat even count peyote, onto the 15s, and then directly opposite on the other edge I've connected the other side to the 15s before ending off my threads. So that's exactly what you would do with this one. Here is my working thread, which I would connect to the 15s underneath there. And then on the other side, I've left myself a generous tail of about 20 centimeters so that I can connect it onto the other side. And there is your very first tutorial from me for bezeling around a stone, a cabochon or a Rivoli. And for me, I have found herringbone stitch to be the easiest way of bezeling around a stone. Thank you for watching. Bye.